Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have a very special guest for you today. She is an industry thought leader, a compliance guru, a call center extraordinaire. We couldn't be more excited to welcome Nikki Revies, Director of People Operations at Anomaly Squared. Nikki, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Oh, well, it is great to have you. You have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. I can't wait to jump into all of that. But for our listeners who maybe don't know you, first, let's start. Give us a little bit about your background. Tell everyone a little bit about how you kind of got started at Anomaly Squared and your background in compliance and operations.
Sure. So I've been with Anomaly for a little over 10 years. And I've literally grown with the company leaps and bounds. I've been with Jerry Walls for quite some time in terms of, going from a little contact center that hosted probably about 9 to 12 cubicles to now he owns an entire building. So been a part of that journey for quite some time. So, of course, with that came growth and opportunities. And here we are today.
Well, and you've worn multiple hats. You're the Director of People Operations. Compliance is obviously something near and dear to your heart. You have a ton of knowledge and expertise. Tell our listeners a little bit about how you kind of got involved on the compliance and operations side.
Absolutely. So during my tenure here at Anomaly Squared, it's been quite a journey. I'm very passionate about people. And so with people comes structure and processes and understanding every facet of the business. And so with that prompted a deep dive into a lot of operational processes and IT compliance and ensuring that we are protected as a company, not only for Anomaly, but for our partners and for their consumers and so forth.
Now let's get into kind of the nitty gritty. Let's start talking compliance because I think there's a huge misconception out there in the industry. And when I say industry, let's talk mortgage, we're talking fintech, we're talking financial services. But I think a lot of companies just think anyone can pick up the phone and call. I can reach out and I can prospect to anybody and I can cross state lines and I can do that. Let's kind of start breaking it down and saying, you know what, hold on, before you just think anyone can pick up the phone and call. Talk to me a little bit about the rules, the regulations, how in one state you might be able to call up till 7 p.m., another state you might not be called till after 5. Go through some of those things so people realize it's not just a matter of somebody picking up the phone. Let's get into and roll up our sleeves about some compliance things that people really need to be aware of.
Absolutely. So we are governed by TCPA, FCC, a lot of those major government entities that make sure that the consumers are protected and that we are in compliance with the law, hands down. And so there are a lot of back-end processes that are put into place in terms of not being able to call before a certain time, matching area codes to ensure that you are, within compliance. Because although we're on the East Coast, of course, naturally, if you're on a different coast, of course, there are time differences. However, if you have an East Coast area code, that's where the gray area comes in, although you are on a different coast. So there are a lot of different parameters and a lot of different guidelines that kind of help mitigate some of those challenges that we may necessarily see, but it does help us to be effective and in compliance. So those are two of the main facilities or the government entities that we use to kind of help guide us through.
Well, and keeping up with all of those rules and regulations can be overwhelming, especially for a company who says, you know what, we really haven't had a call center before, market shifted, we need to generate more leads. So Bill and Mary and Sue pick up the phone and start calling. They can get into a lot of trouble doing that, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's not just a matter of a manual dial. Number one, it's not as effective as it used to be. You're not reaching as many contacts. So your contact rates are suffering and you're spending more money than you're actually making at that juncture. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of different components in terms of how early you can call a person, how late you can call, the measures that you're using to call, even with SMS, sending emails. There are a lot of regulations around that. So in picking up the phone, I can't just call you, Michael, at 8 a.m. because I'm up and at work. That's not how that works. There are certain guidelines that I have to maintain in order to be able to call you under a business, need at that particular time.
Let's take that a step further, because I think a lot of people, as they start hearing it, are getting a little nervous, but they're kind of like, I've got it handled. Well, let's then multiply that by all of the states that you lend in, all of the different rules and regulations per state, per region. And now you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of rules and regulations. And I think that's one of the reasons why outsourcing to a call center like yourselves, like an Anomaly Squared, who's constantly monitoring and tracking that, really can ensure that you're making good, strong compliance decisions and not opening up that. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys kind of stay abreast of what's going on in the industry, how you ensure, obviously with your operations background, that there's business processes, rules in place so that your callers know all of these things and can leverage technology to make sure that it's safe and compliant.
Absolutely. So number one, here at Anomaly, we have a people first mentality, right? So with the people first mentality, there comes a lot of expectations in terms of a safe environment. So that ranges from our customers to our staff, how we train, the network procedures that we put into place, even some of the communication protocols that we have. So a lot of that is geared around setting those proper expectations and aligning people to be able to follow those measures and implementations. So as it relates to, just setting that up, the network capability, having those third-party entities that can help mitigate some of those compliant challenges, ensuring that there are no breaches, definitely having the training process, helping our agents and our contact center staff to understand some of the regulations around TCPA, making sure that we have the proper protocols in place, making sure that everyone is aligned with not only those protocols, but actually adhering to those standards as well.
Well, and that's why I think it's so important. Look at all the things that you just rattled off. I hope all our listeners are taking notes. And my point is, there's a lot more to it than just picking up a phone call. I think it starts with, and you touched upon this, and I'd like you to dive a little bit deeper of, it really starts with having the right culture. You talked about being people first, but talk about that compliance culture that really has to permeate what you guys do, and then how that extends to your clients.
Absolutely. So the compliance culture that we embody is simply, like I said, and I keep saying it, is the people first mentality. And that's so important because when people feel safe, whether it's our clients, whether it's their consumers, it's our staff, that helps us to enforce very strict policies and help ensure that everyone is aligned with those policies. So that's really the hyper focus around some of those facets of what we do in terms of those implementations. And so I think that has been one of the biggest things that we've been able to overcome in this remote world that's really hard to come by nowadays, right. Because you lose touch sometimes. So
you do, and it's a fine balance, right? I mean, one of the advantages of being remote is now I can recruit anywhere across the country, and I can get the best of the best. I can get the people that really fit. But how do you maintain that culture when you can't see them face to face on a daily basis?
Yes.
That's, I think, one of the challenges as we continue to evolve. I think you're starting to see a lot more of hybrid work environments. Yes. Maybe you only come in on Wednesday and Thursday. You can work from home Monday and Friday. For those that want to be in the office on Tuesday, they can come in on Tuesday. For those that don't, I think we're seeing that evolve, and I love how you talk about people first. The culture really has to be in place. And I think that's one of the advantages of, if this is all you guys do and you specialize in it, you guys can excel at call center and results and getting conversions because you maintain that compliance. Let's talk about technology's role. What's technology's role in all of this, right? There's so many things going on. There's phone systems and there's call routing and lead routing, and we got to know which jurisdiction and compliance and rules and regulations. And I'm getting tired just saying all of those things. Tell me a little bit about how you guys leverage technology while still being people first.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of safeguards in the way that we use technology, whether it's reporting, whether it's alerting different things to prevent breaches and to ensure that our agents are secured on the networks that they're working on, whether it's VPN access or even a direct line or a company computer, something of that sort. So it's been very important for us to hone in on that to protect PCI and HIPAA information and all the data that we are receiving. Those are very high level focuses for us to ensure everyone feels safe.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because while we talk and our audience is primarily in financial services, you guys also extend through insurance. You also extend through healthcare. You mentioned HIPAA requirements. So you're very good at really protecting the data and understanding what type of questions your agents can ask and what they can't ask, right? Because
yes, absolutely.
Dealing with highly sensitive information, whether it's financial services, whether it's insurance, whether it's healthcare, you really have to understand what can be said, what can't be said, and how you monitor that. Let's talk a little bit about, I know you've written a number of articles. Congratulations. Obviously, you have a lot of great insights. In the latest article I was reading from you, talk about network access, communication protocols, and really the need for training of the internal staff so things are done right. Can you expand upon some of those areas?
Yeah, so just generally speaking, the remote environment is definitely, it has taken on its own world, right? And so having those third-party networks to help us kind of go through those challenges, again, whether it's VPN or just a lot of the bring your own device. Those are some of the components that are definitely prevalent in this day and age. So one of the things that we do have a bring your own work device, and we have the VPN access that allows us to be able to close in some of those security points and to ensure that there are no breaches readily available, ready to happen.
Well, and I think that's the key, so that you guys know that whoever you work with, their data is protected. Let's talk about some of the results that people look for from a call center, right? From an operations standpoint, you want to make sure everything's buttoned up. But at the end of the day, the reason people would look at an Anomaly Squared is they need more leads, they need more business, or they need help with their customer support frontline. Talk a little bit about where Anomaly Squared really adds value and why people engage with you guys.
You know what? Let's just be honest. It's because of what we bring to the table, and what we bring to the table is high quality agents, a very compliant work environment, and a high contact rate. And that's because we know how to utilize all of the information in a very compliant measure. And not all companies out there can do that. And that's what really sets Anomaly apart from the rest.
Well, and let's talk high contact rates, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of rules and regulations, and you can be put on different lists. And if your company is put on a certain list, then that's going to be, is that a spam call? Well, as soon as you're put on those lists and it's categorized as a spam call, you're not going to get through. So talk a little bit about, because of your guys' knowledge and expertise, you can have much higher contact rates.
Absolutely. So we are very quick and efficient. As our CEO says, we're very nimble. It's kind of like, hey, what do you need us to do? We can do it. We can figure it out very quickly. And so with that being said, we are actively staying proactive. And I hope that makes sense. But in terms of who's on the DNC list and partnering with different companies to ensure that we are mitigating any challenges as it relates to spam calls and staying ahead of local DIDs and so forth, everything that pertains to the business in itself to make those contact rates more not only personable by using local DIDs, but definitely going into the portion of, hey, we're connecting with you. We know that you inquired of some sort. Let's have a conversation.
Well, exactly. And you talked about that. Do not call lists, right? Just managing that properly can be an enormous task, especially for a company that is not used to running a call center, correct?
Absolutely. I will say it's definitely a team effort, and it starts with the staff, ensuring that they have proper training, ensuring that they understand the keywords to listen for in the event that they are on a call and it goes a different way. We need to know how to be able to handle that, and triaging that data and ensuring that it's going to the right place so that it's effective, not to be, breaking any compliance regulations as we move forward within those cadences.
Let's talk one other kind of evolution of a call center, because we still use the term call center, but it's not just all calls, right? As you mentioned, there could be emails, there could be text messages. It's really all outreach. And whether it's a text message, whether it's an email, it still has to be done compliantly. Talk about how kind of the industry has evolved with all of these different communication channels.
Absolutely. So we call it omni-channels in our world. And there are so many different facets of how we can utilize, just the contacts that we have today. And so if you're sending out an email blast to everyone on your contact list, there are regulations in terms of what you're sending out, how often you're sending out. And then you're going into, is it hitting the junk pile? Or is it actually being delivered to that person? And so we have a very effective technology team or IT team who works in tandem with our partners in tech solutions to make sure that we're gathering all of that information to be able to hone in and make sure it's delivering to the right people at the right time.
I love it. And I think you and I could talk for hours. You always have so many great insights. Like I said, guys, she's written a number of articles. Read those articles. Nikki, if somebody has more questions and they want to find out more about you and Anomaly Squared, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So I'm definitely on LinkedIn. However, you can go to anomalysquared.com and meet Anomaly. All of our information is on there. You can read more about us, some of the articles that we've posted and published. You will not be disappointed at all.
Fantastic. And I know you guys will be attending the MBA Annual Conference in October. So if people are looking to schedule meetings, want to find out more about call centers, rules, regulations, making sure that they have things set up the right way, they can reach out to you. They can reach out to Rob. They can reach out to Tony, the whole team at Anomaly Squared. Nikki, thank you so much. You had so many wonderful insights. It was such a pleasure to have you as a guest on this episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
Thank you, Michael, for having me.